Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of As I Live and Grieve. Say, I have to tell you real quick, I just got back from the most fantastic experience ever. I had been asked to present on a grief cruise. More about next year's opportunity for you yourself to go on a grief cruise. It was fantastic. But now I'm back from the Caribbean, back in the chilly North United States weather and waiting for spring. How about you? With me today is a great guest. Rebecca Schaper is with me. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me on. And I want to hear more about that cruise. It sounds wonderful. We'll do that later on.
Yeah, we can catch up after. It was divine. It was everything I had hoped and more.
That's great. Those are the best.
Yeah, truly, truly. So today we are going to talk about you, your book, and your experiences, because I know that something or some things that you have to say will really resonate with my listeners. So let's get started. Rebecca, would you start us off and give just a little bit of your background, please?
Sure. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in a family where my mother and my father were alcoholics. My father was a predator, not only to me, but to others as well. My mother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, which I still to this day do not believe that. And my older brother, Carl, which was the documentary that I was blessed to do and had a calling to do, was about him and his mental health issues. And my parents they did the best they could. And for some reason, with everything that was going on, I felt like this was all happening for a reason. And I know this may sound odd or really, but it's the truth, because I'm a very truthful and authentic person. I would not be where I am today because I have been able to help so many people. So in a way, yes, I went through my grief, but I was blessed by it all. You know, father and abusive, alcoholic, a mother, mental health issues, alcoholic, and everything. So there you go.
Yeah, well, first thing I'll say is that's a whole lot of grief, and not necessarily grief caused by death, but just loss of a life that perhaps you were dreaming of as a child that really you had to struggle to make it through and everything. So kudos to you for getting, as you say, through your grief. And as we all know, I'm going to grieve to the day I die. And you likely will as well, but you have molded your life and adapted your life around these issues. Now, you mentioned the documentary. Tell us about that.
Sure. And let me just preface it a little bit. I do believe a guardian angel was hovering, taking care of me. And so I feel very blessed about that. But my brother, who was 3 years older than me, in college, he never finished and he took off for 20 years. I always knew that he was alive. I always knew. And through a miracle, we found each other. And when we found each other, neither one of us said anything, but I had this calling within my soul that I needed to do a documentary about him, about growing up in the type of family that I grew up in order to help others and how to forgive. And it was, it wasn't easy, but I knew that this was my soul path. And I would like to tell your audience, this goes for the documentary, the 2 books. I knew nothing about how to do a film. Nothing. I knew nothing how to write a book. Nothing. But it's okay. And I hope your audience understands this. That you're like, oh my God, there's no way. I don't know anything about trust. because the people will walk into your life to make it happen. It took 14 years to film. I had ebbs and flows of it. I almost gave up one time, but I just said, God, I can't do this anymore. And then somebody came into my life that I didn't know and picked it up after 7 years of being in the process of making the film. And he was the catalyst of the film. I do believe that we met each other we found each other for a reason, because that's what sparked it. And he loved to go to film screenings. He was all about it. And I wanted people to understand that he has a soul. He had a soul. And that to bring my brother who he really was. Now, yes, growing up, there were times that he was angry, but I think he was taking his anger out on me because of the trauma he was going through with my parents. He was absorbing it all.
Yeah, that often happens. We have our anger, and often we take it out on somebody other than the person because of, well, some of it's fear, because we're afraid that the person we're really angry at is going to retaliate in a way that's either going to be painful or life-threatening or even life-ending. So sometimes we strike out at someone else that we really care about, I guess knowing in our hearts that somehow at some point in their lives they will understand.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you reached that understanding.
I did.
What was going on with that.
And we reached that understanding with each other. And they say grief is the biggest transformative.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yes. And it just broke my heart open, and it just gave me so much strength, and I changed as a person.
Right.
And I'm sure you felt the same thing with.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not the same person I was before Tom died, my husband. Not the same person at all. And this month it'll be 7 years. It takes time. Yeah. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own timeline, so to speak. Now, did you write the books after the documentary then? Yeah,
the documentary was the backbone. And so after 14 years of filming, and my brother passed away 2012 of colon cancer, we proceeded to go and still help a lot of people with the film. Then I had another soul calling. Perhaps it was my brother talking to me, but it's like, you're not done. So I wrote a book called the film was A Sister's Call. The book was, Lessons from My Brother's Schizophrenia. Yeah.
Oh.
And that took probably 2 years. And I had a tremendous, let me back up. I had an incredible developmental editor. He helped me out so much because I did a lot of journaling, but I didn't know how to, piece everything together.
Right.
So that was more on the spiritual realm versus the documentary. And then 2023, December 7th, my, the second book, my soul dog, my absolute soul dog. I'm sure if anybody's a big animal lover, there is that one dog, you have that strong connection. He passed away unexpectedly at 6 years old. Talking about grief, it was worse than losing my parents. Both of my parents died by suicide, too.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and 11 years apart. And I'm telling you, it was worse than losing my parents. That's the truth. But fast forward through, how can I explain it? Through a lot of synchronicities, through manifestation, through intuition, through listening to nature, what my dog Gus was communicating with me through Sunny, the pet communicator. We now have another dog, same breed, and Zeke is his name. He came in. We got him at 6 months, the day my mother had died by suicide. 3 days prior to when we lost Gus, my old dog. And we see a lot of Gus in Zeke. So that...
Do you?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, that can be a whole different story in itself. But but I want people to understand that if they lose their pet, that their pets are right there. They want to communicate. I have illustrations in the book to show how the three-way conversation between Sunny, the pet communicator, Gus communicating with her in the afterlife, and my comments. It's people can decide whatever they want, but what I know is what I experienced, and I do have illustrations in the book
Right.
to show it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Wow, you have got a wealth of information and experience available for someone who's grieving.
Yes.
You've covered, I mean, the pet aspect, and everybody wishes with whoever they lost, whether it be animal or human, that they had a way to stay in touch.
Yes. They want
With
to
that
communicate.
identity. They wanted to. And so you have a way that it's happened for you. And I encourage listeners that have that interest to maybe grab your book and read about it and see what they themselves might do to help themselves get to that point where they too can communicate. And I've had a number of guests on that are in communication regularly with a departed child, a departed spouse, a departed pet, whatever the experience, it is happening. And for me, I've made a couple of attempts to reach out to my husband and my mother especially. My attempts have not been successful. I'm rationalizing that by a couple of things. I may not have had the right match with the person who's going to help me. And secondly, I was brought up in a generation and an environment of science. Everything to me is scientifically based. I went through that whole, well, how can there be a heaven? Because there's nothing scientific to support that. That whole crisis with religion, with theology and science. I went through all of that. And I think a lot of that's still lingering. I have to have some kind of proof. And for me, proof isn't necessarily another person's experience. I have to experience it myself. Now, having said that, I will say that there have been a number of things that I cannot convincingly make myself believe were coincidences that I believe now have been signs from my mother or my husband, Tom. That's the only explanation, because there is nothing else to say that this was a coincidence. There's no scientific basis for what happened. It just happened. So my mind is a little more open. I'm waiting for it to open a little bit more before I attempt again. But I will attempt again because I want it so much.
Exactly. And your awareness sounds to me, it's gotten more heightened. And it's the awareness and trust. That and coming from your heart, not coming from, I want this, I want that, but really feeling it within your heart. And my only suggestion is maybe you weren't ready then.
Well, and that's entirely possible.
Yeah, and it's because sometimes I saw my mother after she passed away, I saw her standing at the door frame with her nightgown on.
Yeah.
And I don't get signs from her that much at all. But one of my daughters does. And that's okay. But, it will come. I do feel it will come for you, Kathy. It's just maybe the timing is just not right now. But keep opening. If I can tell people, keep opening yourself up. It could be the smallest thing. And you're like, what was that? Or you get a download and you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
And their favorite song, their favorite whatever, they will show you. And I feel like
it'll happen.
Yes, it will. And have that
it'll
trust. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel it too for you.
I have to set the science aside, and that's what I'm working on. But I would agree, open mind and open heart is the key. And to watch for those signs are there, but you have to watch for them. You can't just blatantly wait for something to slap you in the face. That might not be how it's going to happen.
It may not, but sometimes that can happen. That's
right.
happened.
One example was on this recent cruise. I happened to be by the pool one day.
Yeah.
And my daughter was as well. And we were out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
So no land anywhere around us. And there were 2 butterflies around the pool. And I thought, for all the cruises I've been on, I have never seen butterflies on or near a cruise ship, even if I've been a port, So I thought, well, here we are out to sea, no land around us. How do these 2 butterflies manage to get here in the ship? Now, there may be a scientific explanation, but one of the workshops I was presenting had a facet to it about that part of grief where you decide you don't want to live like that anymore and you're going to move forward. And I likened it, I used the analogy of the caterpillar, the chrysalis, becoming a butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
And here are these 2 butterflies. So
I love that. I love that because you were aware. Could be your mother, could be your husband at the same time. Butterflies are means transformation.
Sure.
So just be in wonderment and awe of it. But and I would suggest people, if you feel like an experience that you had, thank them.
Yeah.
Just saying, thank you so much. Yeah. And sometimes we don't have to know the meaning, but those are just kind of nuggets that I have learned along the way.
Absolutely. And the other piece of that is my daughter was with me, and she did not see these butterflies. Puzzle on that one for a bit.
No, no, because when you started the story, I literally got goosebumps.
Yep.
And I just got them again. Oh, wow. Yep. So I think it was for you, and maybe I'm just getting that feel.
My explanation is that it was both my mother and my husband.
Yep.
Kind of doubling up and saying, now?
Yes.
Will you now?
Yes.
I want to kind of change direction a little bit. Sure. And I want to talk about your writing. Now, you said you didn't know how to write, just like you didn't know how to produce a film. Yet you took this on, you attempted it. So I want to start from the standpoint that we all have a story or stories about our experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. What made you decide to turn it into a book?
Because that was my calling. I listened. Yes, I tune in to my soul. And when something comes unexpectedly to me, like something like that, and the documentary and both of the books, the last book, and also too, I wanted to honor Gus. When I get a calling, I listen and I do it, because I know that's how I'm being shown that this is where I am in my next path of life, my next journey.
Right.
And I follow that.
And the fact that you had no experience other than journaling, right?
Yeah.
That didn't bother you at all?
No, I just knew.
So how did you start?
Interesting. Through synchronicity. You mean how to start journaling, or how did I find the editor? Which piece are you?
Well, let's do both.
Okay. Well,
how and why did you start journaling?
Because it was very therapeutic for me.
And it was in your grief?
Yes. And there were situations that happened that no one would understand it unless I wrote it down. Okay. Because I had to write it down immediately, especially several things definitely with my dog, but with my brother, Paul. But here's the thing, how I found the editor was he happened, let me see, how did I stumble upon Gerald?
Had you started the book before you found him?
Oh, the book? Before
you found it?
No, I was done. After 15 years of filming, I was done. That was it.
Okay.
And then 2015, that's when I got that. And I went, oh, God, really?
Now you got to write a book.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, all right.
Looking at the expression on your face, it's like you were given a homework assignment.
Yes, because my writing skills are not polished, but I just journal. And I do automatic writing. I just write. I say, okay, what does my soul want me to know? So I just write it all down. But here's something interesting that a synchronicity part of the book was my younger daughter lived out in California. She lived in Santa Monica. It just so happened that Gerald, the guy who helped me with the book and the second book, lives 5 minutes away from her. Now, yeah, I could walk from her townhouse to his.
Did she introduce you?
She had no clue who he was.
No idea.
No.
So where did you and he meet?
Somebody suggested him. I'm trying to remember how we met up. Maybe it was through someone else. Isn't that awful? I honestly cannot remember. But what I do remember is the fact that he lived 5 minutes away, because I wanted to go visit him in person to see if he was, he could help me out. And so when we met, I went to his place, and the rest was history.
Yeah, and you said, I want to write a book. Will you help me?
Yeah, and he sat down and he listened, and he's awesome, and he helped me with the second book with my dog.
Wow,
Gus.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he popped in again. That's another story.
So do you consider yourself a writer?
No, to be honest.
Do you consider yourself a storyteller?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I love to tell stories.
Yeah. And the story that you would tell someone, is that what you've been able to capture in the book?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because of his help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And if someone is ever interested in getting a pet communicator, you got to be real careful. You got to know who you're connecting with. But
Right.
I mean, the evidence shows in the book.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your editor is not your communicator.
No.
Okay.
Sunny Man, who lives in Australia, I
Okay.
found her through another pet communicator that I would get emails from, but she no longer did consultations. But I saw Sunny's name on there. There were only two, and I was drawn to her. I mean, I went,
Okay.
so that's how I found her.
Okay. All right. And does she communicate strictly with pets?
No, she communicates with horses. She does past life regression. She does remote healing. She's pretty well reversed.
Got quite a toolkit there,
Yeah,
doesn't she?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And your editor now just helped you with the books, and that was the extent of
Gerald,
help.
yeah. Well, actually, I'll preface that a little bit. Sunny and I were going to do it together, but then it just didn't work out. She's in Australia. I'm here. It would have been really. And then out of the blues, after 4 years, Gerald says, "Hey, do you have any projects coming up?" And I went, I said, yes. And so I told him about the whole situation with Gus. And so one thing led to another.
And there you go again.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have another book coming?
No, I don't like to say no.
Are you sure?
Who knows? I don't know. I can't, I don't like to say no because I never know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. So, but
documentary, which of course you had to kind of write as well, right? Documentary and 2 books, and you're not a writer.
No, I have these visions, and here's how I do it is if I'm out walking, because I feel like I'm in nature a lot, and to me nature is such a helpful tool, and it's so nurturing. And if I'm out walking my dog or just out walking, and I get a thought, I will do dictation on the phone and send an email to me. So, one thing that leads to another. That's how I do it.
Okay.
As I'll
still journal?
I'm sorry?
Do you still journal?
Yeah, I'm doing another type of journal on my younger daughter, but that's kind of quiet right now.
Oh, okay. And when you journal, do you journal about a specific topic?
Yeah, there's a specific situation, and then that situation is like the root of the process. It grows.
Journaling.
Yeah.
I know there's so many different types of journaling.
I don't know what the types are. I just do what I do.
Oh, I know a bunch of them.
And that was to be working so far. So I'm like, why not?
That was another workshop I presented on the cruise. Was one about. It was called Healing the Right Way, and it was WRIT.
Oh, cool.
And it talked about journaling, scrapbook journaling, art journaling, diary journaling, all the different kinds and everything. So, it's because a lot of people in their grief, they just kind of don't really have any direction. They're just writing down what's in their head. Yeah. And that's perfectly okay. So I guess what I really wanted to stress today for a lot of our listeners were that we all have a story or stories in us. They can be centered around memories. They can be centered around a loss. They can be centered around a relationship. We all have stories. If you have ever told your stories and someone said to you, "Oh my gosh, that should be a book," or "Oh my gosh, that should be a movie," and if you've had more than one person say that when you've been telling your stories, maybe you want to think about putting it down. Now, whether you ever go to the extent of publishing it as a book or filming it as a movie or documentary, it can become a legacy of your love for a person. And one of the reasons I think of that is I think both sets of my grandparents, my maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents, all 4 of those people died before I was 5 years old.
Wow.
I never knew them, yet I would love to know more about them. I would give anything to have a diary available or something so I could get to know them better. And I think in the future, and we don't think of this very often, but in the future, you are going to have a generation or more than one generation of people that wish they had known you a little bit more. So the stories that you have can be an incredible legacy. You may not be a writer. That doesn't matter. All you have to do is tell your story, tell your memories. You can do it. If you don't want to sit and write it down, you can dictate it, because then not only do they have the story, but they have the story in your own voice.
Very powerful.
And trust me, if we can do it now, imagine what generations ahead of us are going to be able to do with a voice dictation.
Yep. I love that.
You know?
I love that.
So that's what I want our listeners to take away from this. That you have within you a gift. Consider putting that gift in a form that can be received generations from now. So, for that being said, we are winding down, and you have been a great person to help me convey this idea to the listeners. But this is the time of the podcast, Rebecca, where I actually turn the microphone over to you. I want you to tell the people the names of your film, your books, anything you want to tell them. If you have a website, give them the information. Your contact information will be in the podcast notes, so our listeners don't have to run for a pen and pencil, because it will be there available. But just let them know more about you and what you are now doing with these gifts that you have for everybody. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it, and thank you for that compliment. The film is called A Sister's Call, and it's named after my brother. And then the book that I wrote after him is Lessons from My Brother Call with his Schizophrenia. Then the other book, the one that I just got, it'll be launched April 8th.
Okay.
And that is called Roses to Rainbows, My Dog Gus in the Afterlife.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's your website?
RebeccaSchaper.com. But it's in work in progress right now, because I just let it go after the first book and I just didn't bother with it. So it's in work in progress, but they can reach me at Rebecca Schaper, author at RebeccaSchaper.com.
Sounds great. I can't wait to get a copy of that book and read it. It sounds delightful.
Well, thank you.
I have a stack of books on my nightstand, and I do get to every one of them. Some jump ahead. So
Wow, I'm impressed.
You see.
I've got books, but do I read them that much? No. I kind of thumb through here and there, but
but I read them, some more thoroughly than others, I will say, because obviously some styles appeal, some you think, okay, and you just kind of scan through it a little quicker. But I have an idea this one about Gus's is going to be one of my favorites, because I'm very, very fond of pets.
Well, let me tell you, I have to say, I hope it really inspires a lot of people and opens their mind when they're grieving. And one thing I would like to say, if you're grieving your pet, walk through the memories. I literally walk through all the memories, because that helped my grief as well.
Yeah. And I want to just point out that I hope a good friend that I met on the cruise, his name is Steve, he posted on Facebook today that he just found one of his cats dead today. And he lost his wife last August. And he's just totally distraught. So I want to reach out to him and let him know that we're thinking of him.
Yeah, they can pre-order it right now and tell him I'm really sorry for his loss.
Yeah, I will. Well, I know he's listening. So, I know he's listening. Okay, then. Well, I guess then it's time to say goodbye. So, again, listeners, and I know listeners, because I look at the stats, they're all around the world. There's over 110 countries out there with some of our listeners in it, and over 4,000 cities. And that just tickles me probably more than anything else with this podcast, that, you just all around such a diverse community. And you can't fully understand, I don't think, how much just knowing that you're sitting there listening helps me and supports me in my grief, because I'm going to grieve to the day I die. So thank you, Rebecca, for joining me today. And to the listeners, I'll say, tell those stories and think about turning them into a gift.
Can we take a pause right now?
Absolutely.
I just realized I didn't have the full name of my first book because it's been out since 2015. Let me tell you real quick. The Light in His Soul, Lessons from My Brother's Schizophrenia. That's the book. Yes.
All right.
Wait a minute, Rebecca. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem at all. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Practice self-care. And please, please, please join us again next week. Maybe I'll tell you more about the cruise. Or maybe my guest will be someone I met on the cruise. Stay tuned. Listen in next time. Take care. I love you all. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Kathy. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.